Hello, this is Mark Snowden, and I'm the director for the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association. This is a session called Organizing Your Church for Evangelism. Guys, I was looking today, the United States has like one child born every 9 seconds, and every 11 seconds, somebody dies in America. I just wonder, what it would take, first of all, to have the number of baptisms in America keeping up with the birth rate, not only, knowing that there's people going into a Christless eternity. We have the opportunity today to meet with Tom Pendergrass, pick his brain, ask questions, be able to see a little bit of a presentation as well, which I appreciate you preparing, Tom. And Tom Pendergrass is the pastor of Urban Crest Baptist Church in your 29th year, which I think is absolutely incredible. And you were 6 years in Cleves. These are Cincinnati area churches, and appreciate the way you have poured your life into the Cincinnati area as well. Tom, if you want to say a few things before we get into the presentation, that's fine.
Well, sure, Mark. Thank you. It's a joy to be with you guys, and I pray this will be of value to our pastors. I think I would start out by telling everybody I'm not an expert on this. This is on-the-job training, and so every year you kind of look, and culture change, things change, and so you change methods, but you never change the message. The message is Jesus saves. His death, burial, and resurrection, that is never compromised in any form, but I will use any method possible to try to reach and find somebody for Jesus Christ. And so whatever that can be, I'll try to do. So I'm not an expert on it, but I will kind of share over my 35 years of ministry some of the things that I've done. As Mark, as you said, I've pastored 2 churches, both polar opposites of each other. Cleves, a very, very, very impoverished community. We were $12,000 at that time. We were $12,000 below the poverty level as an average income. The average stay in our community was 6 months. So we saw the church grow. God bless. We baptized over 300 people in 6 years, but church never got more than about 150 people just because it was such a transient community, massive drug addiction and alcoholism. And of course, we're talking from 1988 to 1994. I can't imagine what it would be like today in that community. But when I came to Urban Crest, you have people that live under bridges, and you have multimillionaires that live here. So you got both ends of the spectrum. But, Lebanon is pretty much a middle-class neighborhood. It's a very friendly area. People want to live here between Cincinnati and Dayton. I always call us a tweener town. We're between those two. A lot of people that work in those big businesses in Cincinnati or Dayton want to come here and live. Great schools, great community, kind of a Mayberry RFD type of a community. So I start saying that by just diving right into our first point on what I would teach about organizing a church for evangelism, and that's around the area of demographics. Find out the demographics of your community. What is the average age of your community? Yeah. So that's where I would tell everybody to start when I talk to new pastors coming in. Find out about your community. The thing I've always used as a rule of thumb, I want to find out what the average age of my community is, and then what is the average age of my church. And if those two aren't, as they said in the movie Houston, we have a problem. So the average age in Lebanon, Ohio is 32. The average age of our church is 31. So I try to match those two. I've got a huge group of seniors and legacy builders, we call them, and we've got a large host of children and youth that are coming through the system also, so it helps balance it out. When I went to Cleves, the average age of the church was 72. The average age of the community was 36. So you could tell we only had about 8 or 10 people, but the church was dying, basically. And I buried 6 of those 8 in the first 6 months. So find out what the average age is, educational, what's the ethnicity of your community. That'll kind of help you target some evangelism. Lebanon, Ohio is about 98% Caucasian. It's just who we are. 2% makes up a little bit of everything else. What's the average income in your community? What's the population? How many people live there? In Lebanon, Ohio, we have 24,000 residents. When I came here in 1994, there were 11,000. There were 42 churches. 2023, 24,000 people, 42 churches. We've not net gained a church in those years, and the population has gone up by 13%. 77% of our community does not go to church. And you would think, boy, everybody wants to live in Lebanon, safe schools, all that kind of stuff, middle-class community. 7 out of 10 of every people I pass at Walmart, every person I pass at Kroger, 7 out of 10 do not go to church anywhere. And I do these studies every year. How many students are in your schools? And you kind of look at that. We have 2,500 in our high school and junior high school. Okay. We run anywhere between 50 and 80 in our youth group right now. Number of numbers, we have about 8 from the high school and about 12 from the middle school. That's it. So we have a mission field before us there. Where do people hang out in your community? The parks, organized sports, the arts in your community, all of those kind of different things. Because I had a friend when I first started in pastoring made this comment to me before I ever stepped into the pulpit at First Baptist Church of Cleves. He said, Tom, you have to develop a missionary mindset for Cleves, Ohio. You got to go in and learn their culture, their language, all of those, just as I'd do if I was going to Malawi or going to where we go to Cuba and South Africa, all these different places. So I just want to encourage the pastors, get that missionary mindset. What's the culture around you? Example, I'm getting ready to lead a mission trip. We've been helping plant churches in Las Vegas, Nevada. In North Las Vegas, Nevada, there is no major ethnicity group. Caucasian is second in line. You have African American first. We're actually third in line. I apologize. You have African American, then you have Hispanic, you have Caucasian, and then you go to a mix of different races from Asian races and things of that nature. So when you go to Las Vegas and we're helping plant this church, when we go in there and do mission projects, we got to know who we're trying to reach. What's the target age? What we have found out is none of those 4 groups really get along. They don't like to hang out together. You got to be able to break that cultural gap to form a church there that's going to look like the church in heaven one day, of all nations and tribes and tongues and islands and everything else. So that's where I would say start. It doesn't take long. I'm sure Mark can help you get some demographic studies. I remember David Coppage helped me several times. When I first came up here to Lebanon, it was Bob Hopkins. And when Bob was here, we didn't have that much technology. When David was around, he was able to hook me up with some folks that gave me a demographic spell, kind of a spreadsheet of my community. And I have run with that thing since I've been here for 29 years. So just want to encourage you.
Yeah, Tom, we still do that, Mission Insight, and it's available free to any of our pastors. Thank you.
Absolutely. And free is my favorite color. So I would encourage people, go after free. And because it is so important to do that, to understand this is my community. If statistics are correct, they tell us it takes 5 years for a pastor to be integrated and accepted in his community. It takes 5 years to build those relationships with community leaders, where you go into a school board meeting, you're on first name basis. You go into a council meeting, you're on first name basis, all of those kind of things. And I think how we're missing in evangelism today is, if the stats are correct, every 2.7 years, pastors are changing churches.
Mm-hmm.
And so about the time we start getting accepted or break that barrier, we're moving on somewhere else. So I would say, if you're organizing for evangelism, hopefully you can see longevity in your future, because that's going to help you. Now, we've not always done it well. In my 29 years here, we have baptized 1,484 people. So we're at almost 51 people a year. We baptized 50 people a year when I was at Cleves. I've always had the goal of saying I'd like to see one person a week baptized. I think that's healthy. Now, sometimes like Sunday, Mother's Day, we baptize 7. So you'll get a cluster of them. But what we've done and the things I'm sharing with you, I've learned as I've gone, but there's a track record that proves it up. And I think longevity has a lot to do with it. So I won't beat that horse anymore. But I think that's important. Secondly, I would say you don't have to have money to share your faith. You really don't. Beg, borrow, steal resources if necessary. Whatever you can do in Jesus' name, steal them resources. So use Mark Snowden, use anybody and everybody you can to get those. I can remember calling when I was at Cleves, Bob Dunn. At the time, I was a new pastor and I was a new kid on the block. I'd only been a part of the Southern Baptist Convention a couple of years. So I was still learning. I really wasn't even sure what an association was. But I called Bob on the phone. I said, Bob, our church is broke, man. We couldn't fight over money. We didn't have anything to fight over. And I said, but I got to evangelize my city. Can you help? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Tom, I've got 1,000 tracts in my office right now. You can have them if you want them. I said, Bob, I'm going to get in the car. I'm coming down there right now. 1,000 tracts allowed me to knock on every door in Cleveland, Ohio 3 times and give them some form of the gospel. From that point forward, whenever Bob would get things, when I came up here, Bob Hopkins, same way, and then David Coppage and now Mark, they were a resource for me. So tap into those resources. But you don't have to have money to share your faith. Addit said to me years ago, if no one else shares their faith, share yours. So I've lived by that. So if nobody else goes out and shares their faith, I am going to share mine. And I'm going to keep consistently doing it. When I send emails out to pastors and missionaries that we help support, I have a little tagline on the end of there that says, keep sharing Jesus. Mark gets them just about every month, about once a month. I get the email, Mark, let him know I'm praying for him. Why did I put that tagline on there? Let me tell you why. Because my default mode is not to. I have to keep reminding myself there are waitresses, there are coaches, there are people everywhere that need to hear the name of Jesus Christ. So I just want to encourage you in that. You don't have to have money to do it. You can go out and share your faith, but if we're willing to go, I believe God will raise up the resources and churches will step up and help and things of that. And we'll talk about more ways that churches can help with that and associations can help with it as we work our way through. Thirdly, as we organized at our church and Cleves and here, I began to help people develop their story or their testimony. I wanted to have them develop it and I wanted them to tell it. And so when you're in our Sunday school classes or our small groups, we try every week to have somebody tell their testimony, tell their story. If they're never going to go out in the world and share it if they won't share it to the 12 people they sit in Sunday school class with every week. And if you have one a month even, sharing a Sunday school class of 12, one time a month, somebody's telling their story, they get to practice. They get to develop that story. They get to tell it. And so I just want to, and it costs a dime. And so have people tell it on Sunday mornings. We take 5 minutes of every Sunday morning worship service we have, and we talk about missions and telling our story. I call it prime time. Deion Sanders, he's prime time. Well, we call ours prime time on Sunday morning. So we're talking about missionaries we're supporting. Hey, got a word. Joe Veal was in Malawi this last week. He sent a real quick clip. We just shared a village. One village, 35 people gave their life to Jesus for the very first time. I'm going to tell that story. Okay. Yeah. But here's another thing I'm going to do. I do a thing, what we call hit and miss. Okay. Because I get paid to do this and don't get it right. And during the week, there'll be times that I get busy. I've got an agenda. I'm on the run, whatever. I'll miss it. I would have had a golden opportunity to put a word in for Christ or to share Jesus with somebody. And I'll stand up for the people and say, guys, man, I missed it. I had an opportunity this week down at wherever, I might name the restaurant. And there's a young girl there I'd never met, was a waitress, I was preparing for a meeting. I was preparing for different things. And the Holy Spirit convicted my heart later that day that I missed it. So you're not going to always get it right. But I'm also going to tell the hits. Now, a hit doesn't mean they gave their life to Jesus. A hit just means we talked about Christ. We had a Christ-like conversation, and I offered hope to somebody. I offered a way out to somebody. I offered a helping hand. I let them know Jesus loved them, whether they realized it or not. Tell those stories. Do it every week in church. Do it in your small groups. Do it in your Sunday school classes. We take the Lord's Supper here 12 times a year, okay? 6 of it corporately in our worship service. The other 6 is on Sunday morning in our small groups, our Sunday school classes, all the way down through 4th grade. In all of our adult classes, we have somebody each week talk about the first time they took the Lord's Supper and what it meant to them. How old were they? Why do you do that? Because sometimes it'll be, I was 10 years old. First time I took the Lord's Supper as a believer, I was 10 years old in Jesus. So again, you're telling the story. You're just organizing. You're kind of putting that evangelism as a part of the DNA of your church, whether your people realize it or not. They're getting to tell their story of how they came to Christ. Those 3 things, they don't cost you any money. Those are great ways. The 4th one doesn't either, because a lot of times people will tell me, well, we don't have any funds to do evangelism. We don't have those kind of things. The 4th one, however your church is structured and however you do a gospel invitation. I do an invitation at the end of every service. I invite people to come forward. Some use cards and have fill cards out and drop in offering box. There's nothing wrong with however you do it. Just do it. I would encourage you there. During that, you're teaching people to share their faith. At the end of every service, I'll walk through the plan of salvation. I'll do it very, very briefly. Here is the gospel. Jesus died on the cross for our sins according to the scripture. He was buried. He rose again on the 3rd day according to the scripture, 1 Corinthians 15, 3 and 4. I'm already teaching people how to share their faith right there. That is the gospel. So if they don't get anything more than that, but those invitations are letting people know it's also okay if people don't walk forward. I teach my folks, listen, my job's to cast the net. The Lord puts the fish in. I cast the net. I'm the faithful one that casts it, and I allow him to do and to put the fish in there. Another thing we do at Urban Crest to break the ice of even helping people stay familiar with the altar, I guess is the best way I put it. Once a month, we do a general altar call for everybody to come to the altar at Urban Crest. So as we go through our summer programs, we'll talk about the fact that, hey, this coming Wednesday night, we're going to be at Lalou's Multi-Housing Center down there. There's 84 units down there. We're going to come forward at the end. I'm going to ask you all to come down here forward right now. I want you to pray over the Lalou's right now. I want you to pray for that complex. When you drive by it this week, it's right across the street from Dairy Queen. Everybody knows where Dairy Queen is. When you drive by it, I want you to pray for it. Come out on Wednesday night, but come to the altar. And hey, while people are coming to the altar today, if you made a profession of faith, you need to get baptized, why don't you come and join them and just get myself or one of our pastors by the hand, and we'll pray with you. If you don't have a Bible, you come forward. We'll make sure you get a Bible. But again, it's the invitation process that you're teaching people to invite people to come find Jesus, to kneel and pray. And all of those things, again, they don't cost money, but they put it in the mind of people. This should be normal, what we're doing here.
That's good. I have a question for you. How do you follow up on decisions that are made on a church service?
Yeah, absolutely. We do what we call a connection card, and we have people fill those out, drop them into the offering boxes as they leave. We use them. It's our primary way we get prayer requests from our people. So at the end of the service, we'll take a couple of minutes, and I'll say then too, hey, listen, if you gave your life to Jesus today, maybe you were too nervous to walk up here. Why don't you write that on the card? Your decision, drop it in there, somebody will call you. So either myself or usually it's somebody on my staff. We have a follow-up team that will do that. Some are staff, some are volunteers. and they'll follow up. Every decision's made. Mark, who is my administrative guy, he'll send a letter out to them. Hey, so thankful for the decision you made. If we can help you, let us know. Next steps of baptism, things of that nature. If they gave us their email address, we'll ask them if we can put them on our email mailing list. We have about 800 on an email mailing list that we send out every week. That includes our newsletter, all of those kind of different things. But there's an intentional process that goes on from the moment they are there, they make that decision. If they walk forward, usually a staff person, I have 2 or 3 deacons that'll be up front. They'll help fill the card out with them. And so we'll have the card for our record. We get many, though, that they don't walk forward. They'll fill the card out and say, I prayed to receive Jesus. I usually say, you don't have to put a big line, just put salvation or put saved. Or if you need to get baptized, put baptized, Bible, something of that nature, or if you got a prayer request. And so it's just a simple system. We keep it easy as we can, and it seems to work for us and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Thanks. Number 5, guys, this is a pet peeve of mine, Vacation Bible School. I cannot stress to you the value of Vacation Bible School in my 35 years of ministry. Every year, 35 years, we have average net gaining 5 families to our church. 5. Wow. For 35 years, 5 families. We'll baptize 8 to 12. Most, I think, was 20 or 22 children on Friday night of Vacation Bible School. They have a mission class they go to where we share the gospel of Jesus Christ. One of our deacons shares the gospel there, and he goes on all kinds of mission trips. And so I've never missed a night, to my knowledge, a single night of Vacation Bible School. I don't do anything. Y'all all right? I show up. I have no assignment. I intentionally keep myself free. I'll go visit different classes and kind of pop in and say hi to the kids. I'm in the hallways beginning and end just to greet parents as they come in and out. If their kids gave their life to Jesus, they'll walk out with a little red, ribbon bracelet or one of these little rubber band bracelets on. I'll be able to see that. When their mom and dad comes up, I'll walk up to the child and say, hey, I saw the bracelet there. Does that mean you gave your life to Jesus? And they're so excited. And I'm able to tell mom and dad, hey, that's just what happened right here. And so it's keeping that evangelism to the forefront. All of my staff throughout the building, many of our adult volunteers, when they see that bracelet, they're going to walk up and high-five that kid. If that'll happen 10, 12 times a night, and especially when the parents come in. We're making a big deal out of the decision that their child make. We want to make sure that the parents know this is a big deal in the life of your child. And so we have about 400 kids at Vacation Bible School. 100 of them, 150 of them just get dropped off. Parents don't come here, have no affiliation with us whatsoever. So when those parents come to pick them up, you have to come in to pick them up. We have a code system. So you're not going to get in the building and get your kid. We're not going to send them out to the parking lot. Gives us an opportunity to share the gospel or at least brag on their child for the decision they made. So I'm real big on Vacation Bible School. I think it is a missing element in many of our churches today. For the smaller churches, let me say, when I was at Cleves, I told you I was brand new to association. I'd only been a Southern Baptist 2 years. I got an invitation the first year I was at Cleves. We had won an award for baptisms in the Cincinnati Area Baptist Association. I called my pastor, Bob Skirvin, who was at North Fairfield Baptist. Now, Bob's on the other side now. He pastored there 38 years. I called Bob and I said, Bob, what's an association? I didn't know what it was. I won an award. What is this thing? He just laughed. He just belly laughed. He said, man, you're so green. This is so much fun. So understand that the first one I went to, now listen to what I'm telling you, the first one I'm at, I've never been to one. We win this award, and one of our churches stands up and says, hey, man, want to talk about this team that came in August and helped us do Vacation Bible School from, I think it was Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And he started talking. Mark, before he was done, I mean, I'm raising my hand. And he said, he didn't know me. He said, Pastor, you got a question? I said, yes. Are you telling me somebody will actually come and help me do this. And they'll do it at their own, they did it, they paid for it, everything. He said, oh yeah, we do it every year. I'm like, sign me up, man. Every year after that. We did our first year at Cleves, 4 adults, we had 50 kids show up. There were 4 of us. I had lost people, are you listening? I had lost people serving in VBS because they showed up to drop their kid off. And I said, listen, will you stay and just take care of Kool-Aid and cookies for me? I had nobody else. And
that's great.
By the way, many of them gave their life to Jesus. So I'm big on VBS. So I apologize. I'll get off of that.
No. Yeah, that's great. We can move on. That's great.
Yeah, Cliff, what you got?
I've got a question for you here at Mount Carmel. The last couple of years, we've done Vacation Bible School during the day as opposed to night. Have you found that there's a better way to do it, day or nighttime?
We always do ours at night. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me why?
Basically, it takes so many volunteers. And even knowing the community, most of our people work during the day. And I wanted our people to do it. I wanted it to be people-driven and not staff-driven. And so most of our people work daytime hours. And so we always do ours during the evening. And we start at 6 o'clock and go to 9 o'clock every night.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 3-hour vacation Bible school. But that's the big reason. I don't think there's anything wrong during the day at all. If you can get the manpower to do it and the volunteers to do it, I don't see a thing wrong with it at all. And we do our vacation Bible school early enough that we're not competing with football, different things of that nature. Ours is always the first week of June is when we do it. We've done that week every year. A lot of baseball is finishing up. Little leagues and stuff like that. And football and the arts really start in Lebanon about the second week of July. They start, the bands and all those kind of things start up. So that's why we do ours first week of June. But it's just where we could get our volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, another great question. All right, number 6. I would encourage you, this won't cost you any money either, do an annual missions conference. We do one now that's a blowout. It's just a huge celebratory blowout. When I was at Cleves and we did average 17 people, we did our first World Impact Conference, we called it then. I had 17 people. But what are you doing? You're setting the precedent for evangelism and missions are our DNA. They're no longer a tag on. It is our DNA. It's our responsibility to go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost part of the world. And so we do one every year. It's in March. Every year now. We've grown to the point now where we can have about 40 missionaries come in and to be a part of that. My first World Impact Conference, Bob Dunn, the director of Cincinnati Association, Larry Gardner, who directed the old Baptist Center in downtown in the Over the Rhine, Ed Armitage, who did prison ministry and stuff for the Cincinnati. But those are my 3 speakers. And I couldn't even pay them an honorarium. They came out and willfully volunteered to come out and did it. Now, we only did a 1-day thing there. We did a Sunday morning and Sunday night. We now do a Wednesday through Sunday. And so, but again, what you're doing is, when I go back to me, when I became a Southern Baptist, I didn't know a missionary. I did not know one. And so when I went to associations, I began to find out, hey, we support all these missionaries. I began to learn, obviously, and I thought, how can I get those missionaries to my church? And with, if we were fortunate to get somebody that was on furlough, then you could get people. But I wanted to keep talking about it, whether I could get people on furlough or not. So I just scheduled out to when I could get with people who I knew were going to be on furlough and in the country, because I couldn't afford to do like we do now. We fly people in from Africa to do our missions conference. I couldn't afford to do that. But if they're on furlough and they could come by, missionaries were glad to do it. They were glad to do it. So you're keeping it as a forefront in front of your church. I call it brainwashing. I want to brainwash people on the Great Commission. And I really do want that. I want our kids, when they go through our program and they graduate as a teenager, when they go out of here, I want them to go wherever they go. I want them to think that missions is supposed to be a normal part of your church. It's not something that you just give to. You want to give to it, but it's something you do. And to me, the mission field starts when I pull my tires out on Drake Road. When I leave our parking lot and my car hits Drake Road, I've entered the mission field and I'm on it. And so that's a part of why we do the annual missions conference and get missionaries in our Sunday school classes, all of those kind of things. I know we don't use it anymore because of our focus on missions, but RHGAs is still a great educational program for your kids, things of that nature. So just want to encourage you on that and be a part of it. Okay. Number 7, summer outreach programs. It doesn't take as long. I've lived in Ohio all my life. I'm going to pull my notes up here just a second. I'm cornbread fed, raised in Ohio. Okay. I'm really from Hamiltucky. Okay. My folks are from Kentucky. My dad's actually from Georgia, which means I'm confused. I tell everybody that. But I was raised in Hamilton, Ohio. So I've lived in Ohio all my life. So here's what I figured out in Ohio. If you really want to get out and impact your community, you got about 6 months to do it outside when the weather is where you can do it. So what I did from ground 01 in Cleves and now in Urban Crest, one of the things we do with our summer mission programs is this. We run a full slate of stuff from the start of school year in August, like the second week of August now, all the way through the third week of May. Man, we have programs, we have Sundays, Wednesday nights, everything. But the moment that Awana ends and our Wednesday night program ends, from the third week of May till the second week of August on Wednesday night, we do nothing in our church building on Wednesday night. Everything is in our community. We go to parks, we go to multi-housing, we do block parks, we do community outreach, barbecues, all of those kind of different things. I'm telling you now, it's what transformed Cleves, and it is certainly what transformed the image of Urban Crest when I came here. And we started it when I came to Urban Crest was 5 months behind on its church payment. They were getting ready to have the doors closed. Financially, they were in desperate trouble. Hadn't given the missions in 2 years. So a lot of people don't know that history. Only reason they weren't foreclosed on, their loan was through a Baptist convention. Okay. And so that Baptist convention gave them great grace. I mean, great grace. We didn't have any money, but I began to tell our people, now we're going to go out and we're going to do missions. It doesn't cost any money to go down to a park and take a guitar down, play wiffle ball in that park with some kids and share the gospel. Doesn't cost you. Sing a couple worship songs, do that. In our Sunday school classes and our Wednesday classes, we made our invitations out. Kids colored them on white paper with crayons and invited people to come to the event. So all of the kids got involved in the program of doing it and took ownership in it. And they became, I'm telling you, they became artists in making these little creations, a little half sheet of paper that we could go out on Wednesday night, an hour before the event, knock on doors and invite people to come down. Sometimes we'd have Kool-Aid and cookies. You go to Kroger and buy them 500 count of cookies for $10. You know, they weren't much of a cookie, but kid didn't care. They liked that cookie. So that, you know, and of course you'll get objections. Well, you know, what about our older folks? Because they can't come out and do the heat. Listen, I said, guys, get in your cars, drive down, let your car run, pray over the event sitting in your car, drive around the neighborhood. If not, I'll give you the neighborhood we're going to be in. I'll run off the street names for them, and you can pray in your home. The hour and a half we're down there, you can pray over their streets while we're there sharing. And it I'm telling you, it became a hit. And we still do it to this day. We do it. We'll do 13 block parties this year. Five of those will be in 2 different locations. So 5 weeks, we'll have 2 block parties going on at the same time in different locations. So God opens those doors. We'll have Bible distributions. We go into multi-housing with block parties. The next week, we followed up with food baskets and furniture delivery. So you start somewhere with it. We just started with balls, soccer balls, footballs, things of that nature. We did one year. We had several people played wonderful musical instruments. And we went down and put on a little concert in one of our parks in Lebanon down here that's in an impoverished community. And believe it or not, people came out to hear people play some hymns, which is basically with 6 or 7 hymns with just different musical instruments. And people clapped and they thought it was really cool. And the kids would come up and talk about, well, I want to play the trumpet one day, or I want to play the violin one day. We use the artistic ability of our people to do it. And I tell you, John Maxwell said it best. I learned that principle a long time ago. There's gold sitting in their pews. And you got to tap into that gold. And that's not always just monetary gold. Some artistic, talented people walk right in there. I've got guys now that in one park will go down there and put a 3-day basketball camp on. All of these guys are former high school or college basketball players. And they'll go down and run that thing. Some of the parents down there say, we pay big money for our kids to go to camp, and it's nothing like this camp. So tap into the people that are sitting in the seats, put them to work. I mean, just loose them and let them go, okay? After that, so again, May through August, take 13, 14 weeks, whatever it works out for you guys. Do those. We do things on our property, but we don't do them on Wednesday night. We'll do 2 or 3 summer picnics on our property. Those are on Sunday. And I have a rule of thumb. It's been my rule of thumb since I began pastoring. Every event on my property, my people have to agree to do 3 off. Because if we're not careful, we'll do a block party, but we'll do it at our church and invite everybody to come to our church. Go to the community, do it on site, and you'll see the effectiveness go up by 100%. Almost overnight, you'll go, why weren't we doing this before? Right in the neighborhood doing this. We do them in cul-de-sacs, multi-housing units. We do them in community parking lots. We'll go out and set up just a little strip mall. We'll go in and set up and do block parties there and bounce houses and all kinds of other neat little things. Get creative. Think outside the box on it, okay? Mm-hmm. Number 8, when you do your evangelism training, do it on the job training. Now, I've just learned this over the years, okay? I still do a couple of events a year where we do on site and we walk people through a course or 2. All right. Mark and I were joking about this when we were on earlier. I listed all the courses that I have been through in evangelism since I've been a Southern Baptist. I'm gonna start listing them all. CWT, y'all remember the continuing witnessing training. WIN, Evangelism Explosion, People Sharing Jesus Without Fear, Romans Road, Evangicubes, Gospel Frisbees, 2-minute testimonies, 3 circles, Bobby Welch's Big Faith program, 4 spiritual laws, most recently probably Who's Your One, the big NAM thing that Johnny Hunt led there for a while. Listen, when I do an evangelism training event, I'll usually have anywhere from 8 to 10, 12 people show up, and they're the people who are already sharing their faith. I set up events like Wednesday night, invite our people to come out, and I pair them up with my people who already share their faith, so they do it on the job training. So they may come out, and the first week they just go along and watch. The second week, they may go along and watch. Third week, they're going to go along and they're going to share a little bit. 4th or 5th week, they're going to share, and my people are going to watch them. And so you're training up a cycle of people to do that. And I bring guys in, most people know, or if you've been around long, you know Larry Randolph. Larry Randolph was my outreach director for a long time till he had grandchildren and backslid and moved to where they're at. Larry still comes down for every block party we do. He drives 2 hours to come down here, and he goes out and helps train people. Larry he's one of our disaster relief chaplains. He is a soul-winning machine. And but do it on the job training. All right. Let them share in the church their testimonies in small groups and things. Let them do that in that format. but take them out. If we ever want them to share Jesus with a waitress or a coach or somebody of that nature, they need to see us do it in the field, on the field while we do it. And so we set up events to do that. So when we go to block parties or we deliver food baskets, we deliver furniture, every time the gospel is shared. Okay. So I'll share at the end my whole concept on why we do that and stuff. So I hope that makes sense. But I have just found you start seeing the multiplication effect. That increases a lot when you're training them. You're standing right there next to them and you're guiding them through it. They'll learn to share. Have them write it out if necessary. Especially in like Sunday school classes, or if they're coming up before the church, have them write it out and read it. A lot of people panic when they have to stand up in front of 20 people, let alone 700, 800 people. So I give them permission, write it out and just read it. And you get used to doing it that way and stuff. All right, very good. I hope that makes sense. Number 10, graphics and testimonies. Or did I miss one? I got to back up. Number 9, testimonies given in Sunday school groups or groups every week. I said that, have them written out and read if necessary. I just got ahead of myself there. I apologize. So I found out the written out, any mission trip you go on internationally here and or even to our big cities like New York or Las Vegas, when we go there, we require them to do what we call a 2-minute testimony. And so those are written out. My life before I found Christ, how I found Christ, my life after I found Christ. Pretty simple, but you should be able to do that in 2 minutes. Why? If you go to New York City, that's about the average stop between subways. You got 2 minutes to share your faith. And if you're going to be packed into a subway, you might as well talk to the person that your nose is in their armpit, because I've done it for years. So you might as well talk to them about Jesus, and just tell them about, hey, man, can I tell you about the greatest thing that happened in my life? Before I gave my life to Jesus, my life was a mess. Here's how I gave my life to Christ. Let me tell you what it's like now. And in 2 minutes, you get to share the gospel. You may never see them again, but you get to share the gospel with people. Maybe 2 times in probably 20 years, I've had somebody say, I'm really not concerned. Most people will give you a couple minutes. So do that. Number 10, use graphics and technology today. I am technologically impaired, period. I had trouble doing Zoom here, okay? So I really am not very good at technology, but I got a couple people on my staff are tremendous at it. So we use that to share the gospel. But another thing that we came up with several years ago, in the foyer of our church, we have a graphic timeline in the foyer of our church. And by that, it's just January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. What are we doing each of those months to try to reach our community for Christ? There's something going on. December, it's usually our Christmas baskets of hope. We'll invite our community in. We'll have a couple hundred families from the community that have to come. They're required to come to a Sunday night. Now we do a dinner and a church service. We share the gospel. They leave with a food basket to go home for Christmas. We don't pass them out in the community. We don't hand them out on a Monday night and just distribute food. There's nothing wrong with that if you want to feed people. I want to feed people physically and spiritually. So they come to the service. They sit through the whole service. It's about 50 minutes long. So we don't have an hour and a half service there. It's about a 50-minute service. We share the gospel. This past Sunday, we baptized Calvin and his wife, Anitra. Calvin and Anitra both gave their life to Jesus at Thanksgiving Baskets of Hope. It's taken us now 5 months to get them acclimated into the church. They're below the poverty level. Coming to a big church like Irving Crest is a struggle for them. But we were able to help break that barrier, getting them here. Now they've gone through the waters of baptism. They're in a discipleship group now. So again, it all starts through having an intentional plan about it. So the graphics for us, you know what it says? We do a big men's summit every year where about 800 men come in onto our church, about 80 churches. I can't tell you how many people walk up and say this, man, I like that. That says you got a plan. And I always joke with pastors, If you got a plan, then I'll like yours. But if you ain't got a plan, I like my plan better. So I just want to encourage you, somehow graphically display that where people know. It might only be 3 things up there, but hey, we're going to do a big vacation Bible school. We're going to do a big community outreach. Maybe your church is real big with the arts and stuff. I'm going to do a big program with the arts here, and we got a symphony or something, whatever that might be. But make it an outreach event and stuff. But those graphic timelines we do, it tells to our people, it tells to visitors. These people, they're out there, they're trying to do something. Most of them will reach and affect our community. So I hope that makes sense. All right. So again, 3 words on that: intentional. When we do this, by that it's on our calendar. So when you start organizing, first thing you got to do is put it on the calendar. I found out when I first started in this thing, I had a lot of great ideas that never materialized because they never got put on a calendar. And so I disciplined myself to say, if that's worthy of being a great idea, I've got to intentionally schedule this thing. Secondly, do it strategically. We try to reach strategically 9 communities in our area, and we can't reach them all. We rotate them from time to time, but my 29 years here, we have intentionally tried to reach these 9 communities with the gospel of Jesus Christ. They're made up of rich and poor, black, white, you name it. That's how it's made up of. But we basically say we're going to target these areas to do our block parties, our Bible distributions, cookouts, grill outs, things of that nature. We might just pull up with a Kona ice truck and give out free Kona ice to things, all depending on what your budget will allow. But again, it is strategic. We just don't do the scattergun approach and hope something takes place. We go in intentionally. Those 9 things we do are intentionally built around where our members live. Okay, when I go into a community, I want to be able to say, hey, you know the Dobbenmeyers right over there. They're your neighbors. They live on Navajo. You all are on Comanche Drive. They live on Navajo. They go to our church. I'm connecting our people with people that are making decisions and things of that nature. So again, we build it around our people that way. Finally, under the graphic stuff, whether you do it timelines and you're doing your strategies and you're putting it together, do it with a sense of urgency. And by that, I mean start now. There are some things that we have to pray about. Sharing Jesus, we don't have to pray about. We just have to be available. Okay.
Amen.
So now I'm going to pray about it a whole lot. And usually it's while I'm going to share Jesus. My prayer life's going to be right by the time I get there because I'm scared to death. And I've been doing this a long time. And I still get very nervous. You realize you're standing between heaven and hell for people? And you're trying to point them to Jesus. If that doesn't intimidate you, you need a fresh look at Calvary. And so I'm preaching now. I got to get off that. I got to quit preaching. But just want to encourage you. Do it with a sense of urgency. I don't know when Jesus is coming back. I don't know that. But I know he's coming back. It could be today. It really could be. So I hope so. I would love for Jesus to come back today, but if not, I'm going to try to share Jesus with people till he does. Number 11. Oh, Mark, go ahead.
No, it's okay. On the calendar real quick. Do you do an annual planning where these things stay on the calendar? Or sometimes we have a lot of churches that are subject to what we call the tyranny of the urgent. Yeah. And that can be a hassle. But talk to me about your calendaring process, just real quick.
Sure. We have 2 or 3 events that are just staple events that are always there. And I call them all hands on deck events. They take a lot of people. So our missions conference, vacation Bible school, all of those kind of things, those are there every year. They're given events. After that, like January is our men's summit. So that's a staple event. February changes. So we kind of hit and miss with February. Usually it's an evangelistic type event or a training that we use there, a particular thing. So yeah, we do those things intentionally. I'm privileged to have a staff. So we meet in staff meetings every Tuesday. We chart out our calendar. We'll meet in August of this year and plan out the entire calendar for 2024. It'll be finalized. Most of the calendar is already planned out through Easter of next year.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it is. So when we get there in August, we'll just be tweaking September through Easter. And then we'll hit the rest of the year and put things on the date. We make sure we're not competing against one another, have two big events going on at the same time. Mission projects are just always out there. We'll do anywhere from 5 to 12 missions a year, whether it's national or international. Those just go whenever, and people sign up and go to those kind of things. But the summer programs are set. We do ours every Wednesday night. That's just what worked for us. Our people are used to coming on Wednesdays. And so almost everything we do May through August in the community is on a Wednesday night. Now, we throw in 3 Sunday night events to bring people in and do a big blowout community event, things of that nature. One thing we've done the last 2 or 3 years that is we've seen some real good dividends out. We've hosted a big picnic and invited 4 or 5 of the other churches of the community to come and join us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Of other denominations. We have a couple charismatic churches. A Nazarene church comes out, and an evangelical free church that come out. And we'll have 400, 500, 600 people come out. We get some big inflatables, these really big ones that the teens like, and a Dunkin' booth and stuff. But what happens is we start building a community. Because I've learned if we're going to reach Lebanon, not one church is going to be able to do that. It's just not. I'd love to be able to say I'm going to see 24,000 people come to Urban Crest. That's probably not going to happen. But I want to see them in heaven one day. And so I want to work with my brothers and sisters in Christ to encourage them in evangelism and doing those kind of things and stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We intentionally put it on the calendar and make sure that everybody's on the same page and stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Other thing that helps, Mark, I do what I call a leadership summit twice a year. Okay. We gather all of the volunteer leaders of our church. We just did one here about 2 weeks ago. We'll have about 75. My staff will be there, but all of our deacons, trustees, our small group leaders, twice a year, we'll all come together and we go over calendar together. We want them to know where we're going. I don't want a Sunday school teacher sitting in a class and somebody going, hey, I'm so excited about that event coming up, and they don't even know about it. So we do that with our leadership team. We bring them in. We usually just bring in and do a breakfast together on a Saturday morning from about 8:30 to noon. We cater a breakfast from Bob Evans, just do a breakfast together and go over the calendar with everybody so that not only does our staff know what we're doing, all of our leaders know what we're doing. And not so much what, but why. Why are we doing this? We want to impact lostness and stuff. Yeah. So hope that helped. Yeah. Then I would say another thing you can do, I did it at Cleves and Urban Crest, start a food pantry, a clothing pantry, a furniture giveaway. Start it if at all possible that you can. Now, sometimes demographics, it's not as needed as it is, but I'll be honest with you, I'll give you a wake-up call here. I went into a $1 million home, probably 5 weeks ago. That it's 6,000 square foot home. The people bought this home. They've got all their fortune in this home. They have furniture in 4 rooms. Now, let me say that again. They have furniture in 4 rooms. They got the big home, but they're struggling to pay their bills because their house payment's like $3,000 or $3,500 a month. But they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. So not everybody lives in a big mansion, actually can afford a big mansion. But we try to do those programs, and you can only do what you can do. Our home church, North Fairfield, when we started at Cleves, it was so impoverished. We started a little food pantry. It seemed like we never had enough food. I mean, that was the way it was. But I'd call my home church up. I'd call Bob, and I'd say, Bob, man, we're just about out of food. I'm telling you, within a week, I'd get a pickup or 2 pickup trucks full of food where he had his members just bring them in. They throw them in a pickup truck and bring them out and deliver them to us. So there's a lot of churches that would be willing to help smaller churches in small communities if they need that. Clothing and food, or food and furniture and clothing, people always need, and they really do. We have a big multiplicity of multi-housing here in our community, and those are the 3 areas we get the biggest inroad into their home, and a lot of decisions for Jesus come out of that, and we're acclimate them into our church, and so it's a really cool thing and stuff. And Yeah. So that's just another thing that can be done, but start somewhere. When I was at Cleves, our food pantry was about the size of a bathroom linen closet.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody came by, because I didn't have any money to give them, but if somebody came by, I could give them 2 or 3 cans of soup or something and things like that. But, again, share Jesus with everybody. That's the key. And then number 12, we talked about it, but let's just take it a little step further, baskets of hope. Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, a lot of churches try to help out with food baskets then, and it's a worthy thing. It's so needed. But I would encourage you, invite those people to a church service at your church. Doesn't have to be a long service, 30, 40, 50-minute service. Sing some Christmas songs, some Thanksgiving songs, whatever, and share the gospel. And then they go home with a food basket and stuff. We've been doing those, gosh, I started when David Coppage was the director of missions. How long have you been here, Mark? 7 years now?
7, and he was here 17.
Yeah. And we started them when David Coppage was here. And from that time, I would say 350, 400 professions of faith just through those 3 services alone. A good chunk of those people acclimated into our church. Now, multi-housing communities are still transient communities. It's about kingdom growth, not church growth. Mm-hmm. But you do get kingdom growth out of it. And so that's the good thing. We do a monthly Baskets of Hope. So we provide food for about 50 families a month now. And it's people that we are building relationships with. You have to come to our church. So you have to come at least once a month to our church to get on that food program that we help you with. And but we're blessed to be able to financially afford to do it and all. But it's another thing. If people call me during the week and they need some help with some food, we don't give money. Don't help with that. We help with food, clothing, and furniture, and hopefully they can take the money they would spend on food or clothing and things and divert that to maybe paying a bill or things of that nature. But about 40, 50 families now we help every week. Many of them have come to Christ, or many are still in the process. I'd say a good 30 of the 50 are still in the process of finding Jesus. But they're coming and they're listening and they're hearing the gospel. And so we make it intentional, though. So just kind of said, here's what we can do. We put a cap on it. I mean, because at Christmas, Christmas is the biggest one, probably 200, 225 families. I think our baskets cost about $35 a basket. They're really nice baskets. And but those programs are self-funded. We don't even use church budget on them. I mean, we did the first couple of years. We put some budget to it, but we had some folks that believe in it so much they self-fund it above their tithe offering. They self-fund the whole thing. So that's just their heart. They said, hey, if we can reach people for Jesus this way, I'll be glad to do it, because they were the ones that said, I really don't feel comfortable going out in the community and sharing, but I'll give the money if you'll bring them here. And they shared Jesus, and they started seeing people come to Christ, so they fund it for us. And we spend about $10,000 to $12,000 a year on the food baskets and stuff. So it's a blessing. Yeah. I'll kind of end with this statement, David, or Mark, I'm sorry, that I learned this by trial and error, but here's a statement I'll close with. Every evangelical program will become ecumenical if you don't force it to remain evangelistic. So in other words, you'll start out with an evangelistic food program where people come, they get a basket, you share Jesus, they go home. People over the years have opposed that and said, why don't we just give them the food? Okay. You can do that. Anybody can hand out food, and it's a worthy cause. There's nothing wrong with it. But I'm going to share the gospel with people. And for me to try to deliver 225 food baskets and share the gospel with every family personally, that's probably not going to happen, and I'm just going to start distributing food. We got a local food pantry that we support here in Lebanon that you go to, and we help financially support it and help staff it down there. We're not the major staffer of it, but we staff a couple of days of it that people can come in and just pick up food when they need it. But when they need the help, like at Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, they're going to hear the gospel. Any sports program we do, we got a big thing we just started. I didn't know if it would work or not. One of the guys in church wanted to try pickleball. So we have pickleball courts set up in our gymnasium. All right. Went out there. There's 28 people Monday night at pickleball. I knew 6 of them.
Ooh.
I knew 6 people that were there. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And at the end of every pickleball thing, Joe, who leads it, he's one of our volunteers, Joe shares the gospel with people. And I've got him into Mark. I've got him into story.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, I've got him in telling biblical stories and stuff. And by the way, just a shout out to you. I think I'm on the last chapter of the book that you gave us, Truth That Matters, or Truth That Sticks.
Truth That Sticks.
Yeah, and great book.
Praise God.
I'll put a shameless plug in there for you. That's awesome. Great book. I'm just flat out telling you. So anyway, I've grown. I'm gonna preach some of it, so I'll steal a lot of it. I may not give you credit, but I'll steal it. So
no, you're cool.
Yeah. Anyway, any other questions I can answer? I'd love to, or if I can help.
We don't have any questions, Mark, but thank you, Tom, for sharing. I've got a whole page of notes.
Oh, that's awesome, Cliff. I'm so glad.
We'll go ahead and stop the recording here. Tom, thanks again, helping us be able to organize our church for evangelism. We don't a lot of times have a chance to look at the machinery of a church, the protocol, and you've done a great job being able to really have incredible ideas out of your experience. Everything you shared was first person. It wasn't theoretical, and that's huge. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.